Picture this, you're sitting across from the interview panel for your dream promotion. These are people that have watched you deliver results for years. You know you're qualified. You've prepared extensively for this role and even for the interview. But somehow, when they ask you that first question, your voice cracks, your mind goes blank, you start to stumble a little bit, and you feel yourself just shrinking in that chair. That was me about 20 years ago when I was interviewing for my boss's job after he had left the company. I was his right-hand person. I was there helping him develop the strategies and implement them for years. I really felt like I was the heir apparent for that role. But unfortunately, even though I knew the job inside and out, I bombed spectacularly in that interview and unfortunately was eliminated in the second round of interviews. It was devastating. But here's what's fascinating about this. There's research from Harvard Business Review that shows that 70% of executives at some point or another experience imposter syndrome. Yet the top 10% of leaders share one critical trait. It's this unshakable self-confidence at work. The difference between leaders who get promoted and those who stay stuck isn't talent or even the results that they deliver. It's confidence. And here's the thing. I figured out the exact system to build it, and I used it after working with a career coach to eventually double my salary. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. Most confidence advice that you hear, it's like stuff you'd see on the side of a coffee mug, right? It's garbage. It's fake it till you make it. Just believe in yourself. Or stand like Superman in the bathroom mirror. Actually, sometimes that can work, but not for a long-term sustained success. And that's what we're talking about here today. So this is not all of those pieces of advice. That's not how real leadership confidence works. Real confidence isn't about pretending or even, positive thinking. Not that that's bad, but it's about a systematic approach to developing the beliefs, behaviors, and the environment that naturally create confident leadership presence. After coaching hundreds of directors, VPs, and C-suite executives, I've identified the exact 5-step methodology that separates confident leaders from everyone else. And this isn't just theory, it's the same system I used to transform from someone who couldn't handle a promotion interview for a job she knew like the back of her hand to becoming a trusted leadership coach. So let me walk you through all of the steps. So step 1, let's get clarity. Know your leadership identity. The first step is getting crystal clear on your leadership identity, and this is where most people get it completely wrong. See, when I was preparing for that second interview, they actually reopened that position after I had bombed and after I worked with a career coach who taught me something which was about mentally promoting yourself. She said, Terry, you're still showing up as a marketing manager trying to convince people that you can be a director. You need to show up thinking, acting, and presenting yourself as someone who's already a director. That was just a little bit of a mindset shift that had to happen for me to show up differently. But this isn't about arrogance or delusion, it's about clarity. Most leaders I work with are stuck because they haven't defined what confident leadership actually looks like for them. They're trying to copy someone else's style or live up to some generic leadership ideal that really doesn't fit their personality or their situation. Here's what you need to do. Take out a piece of paper and write down 2 columns. On the left side, who I am as a leader right now. And on the right side, who I need to become to get to the next level. Start envisioning what that looks like. Be brutally honest. Look at those gaps. Are you the person who avoids difficult conversations? The one who works 70+ hours a week because it's impossible for you to delegate? The leader who apologizes before sharing ideas with the team in meetings? Because until you're clear on where you are right now versus where you need to be, you're not going to be able to bridge that gap because you're not going to see it. So step 2 is building your roadmap. Let's create your confidence blueprint. Once you have clarity on your leadership identity gap, you need a roadmap to close it. This is not about generic goal setting. It's about mapping specific confidence behaviors to your leadership requirements. I had a client, let's call her Kendra, who was an SVP at a massive insurance company. She's a brilliant woman. She got great results in her role, but she was stuck because she only had a regional network. She was not in the headquarters. She was out in one of the regions. And she realized that in order to advance, she needed to build relationships at the corporate level and across the company. But the thought of networking with C-suite executives and other higher ups terrified her. So we created what I call a confidence blueprint. We identified exactly which relationships she needed to build, mapped out quarterly networking opportunities and meetings where she'd be at the headquarters, and we scripted conversation starters for these different scenarios. The key was breaking down the overwhelming confidence challenge into specific actionable steps. Instead of saying, hey, I need to be more confident networking, we just broke it down, and it became, I reach out to 3 specific executives before each quarterly meeting and schedule coffee chats. Simple as that. And over time, for her, it was recognized, and she started to be seen as a corporate leader, not just a regional leader. That was really critical to her success at her organization. So here's your next action step. Identify the 3 biggest confidence gaps between where you are now and your next leadership level. Then for each gap, write down 1 specific behavior you can practice weekly. Maybe it's speaking up first in meetings. Maybe it's having a direct conversation with an underperforming team member, or presenting ideas without apologizing first. Make it concrete, make it measurable, and make it yours. So step 3 is skills. Master the confidence toolkit. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Confidence isn't just a feeling, it's a skill set. And the number 1 skill that separates confident leaders from everyone else is delegation. That's why you've been put in a leadership position, to use those resources to their fullest. I know this sounds weird, but stay with me. Most leaders I work with are drowning because they think their job is to do everything perfectly. But here's what I tell every client. Your job isn't to do it. Your job is to make sure it gets done. Don't feel guilty if you're not like the worker bee like maybe you used to be. When you can truly effectively delegate and not just dump tasks, but properly delegate with clear expectations, deadlines, and accountability, something magical happens. Yay! You start operating at a strategic level instead of tactical. Your team sees you as a leader, not just as someone who works harder than everyone else. That actually makes them kind of lose respect for you. I worked with a director at a biotech startup, Brett, who was incredibly smart but struggled with influence. He couldn't get anyone to listen to the things that he saw and that he knew. He started with his own team, setting clearer expectations, creating better processes, and actually leading instead of just managing. Once he gained confidence leading his direct reports, the results started to show up. He started to gain some credibility. And then he branched out. He started working with his peer groups to influence how they were doing things. And then this caught the attention of the founders. Within 2 years, he went from director to SVP. He now reports directly to the leadership of the firm. He has expanded his scope significantly. The progression was simple. He mastered delegation with his team. He used that confidence to influence peers, and then he leveraged that influence to impact at a much higher level. It's exciting. Other critical confidence skills: having direct conversations without apologizing, setting boundaries with your time, and learning to say, let me think about that and get back to you, instead of immediately saying yes to everything. So step 4 is the environment. This is about designing your success ecosystem. Here's something most people don't realize. Confidence isn't built in isolation. You need the right environment to sustain it. So there are 3 environments every confident leader needs to master. First, the accountability environment. You need someone who will call you out when you're playing small. For me, it's my coach. For my clients, it's our regular sessions where I hold them accountable for showing up as the leader that they're committed to becoming, not the one they're comfortable being. Listen, no progress was ever made inside the comfort zone. Second is the political environment. Look, office politics aren't going away, and the higher you go, the more critical it is that you learn how to navigate. Confident leaders understand this. They know who the key stakeholders are, they understand the informal power structures, and they position themselves strategically to have influence within that structure. I had a client, John, who was constantly frustrated by what he saw as last-minute requests from his boss. But it turns out he was creating his own stress by making assumptions that everything was urgent. Once he learned to ask, hey, when do you need this by? Pretty simple. His entire relationship with his boss transformed. His long promised promotion and raise finally were approved. So that teaches you something, right? Your bosses are often looking for certain types of behavior. So be that leader they're expecting to see. Third, your people environment. Get away from those who tear you down. Confident leaders are selective about whose opinions they value. They surround themselves with people who challenge them to grow, not people who keep them comfortable. We all want to be comfortable, but like I said, no progress is made from inside the comfort zone. Push yourself a bit, grow. Okay, step 5, mindset, the inner game of being confident. This is where everything comes together and where a lot of leaders fail. Your mindset isn't just think positive thoughts. No, it's about fundamentally changing your relationship with challenges, setbacks, and uncertainty. Here's the biggest mindset shift that I help my clients make, moving away from black and white thinking to what I call possibility thinking. I'm working with somebody right now who says this constantly. I know I need to do this, but I can't because fill in the blank. He immediately slams the door on possibilities because he can't see in that moment how that might work. Every single session I say, stop, you can do it. You just convinced yourself that you can't. You create your own reality by the way you think. So I convinced him, like, let's reopen that door and figure out how, all right? Like, we can separate the what from the how, and that's what good leaders do. So most people think they need massive confidence to take bold action. I believe the opposite is true. Taking action, even when you're scared, even when you're not ready, that's what builds confidence. And actually, that's what's called courage also, is taking action even when you feel a little scared. When I moved my family from North Carolina to Chicago for that director role, I was terrified. I had 3 young children. I was moving to a new city, a new company. There were massive expectations for the job. The real estate was way more expensive. And when I walked into my role, there were a lot of people that were resisting my leadership. I was scared, I'll tell you. But honestly, failure wasn't an option. I had too much riding on being successful in this position. I had to make it work. I'd moved my family halfway across the country. So I did what confident leaders do. I focused on what I could control. My preparation, my response to challenges, my willingness to have uncomfortable conversations. And did I do it perfectly every time? No. Sometimes I fell on my face, but guess what? I got back up, brushed myself off, and I did what I needed to do. Here's the key. I kept taking action even when I felt like an imposter. Honestly, unshakable confidence, even though we talk about it, it's probably impossible to have, right? Or at least in the beginning. But we start by thinking positively, by expecting positive outcomes. Even when we feel scared, even when we make mistakes, we get up and we just keep going, okay? That's the secret. Confident leaders, they don't wait to feel confident. They act confidently until that feeling catches up. They act expecting positive outcomes. That's the definition of confidence, acting, expecting positive outcomes. The mindset isn't, I'm confident. The mindset is, I choose to believe that positive things will come out of this action, regardless of how I feel. And guess what? If you've made it to that level, even if things don't turn out positively or they don't turn out exactly the way that you expected, you will have the resources within yourself to figure out what to do next. This is leadership. There you have it. The 5-step system that transforms directors into confident leaders. This isn't theory. This is the exact system I use to go from bombing 2 interviews for the same job to doubling my salary and building a successful corporate career and then building a successful coaching enterprise. It's what I've used with hundreds of executives who have gone from overwhelmed managers to confident leaders. And here's the thing, knowing the system isn't enough. You have to implement it. If you're serious about developing the kind of confidence that gets you promoted, get you respect, get you the results, then you need someone to guide you through the process and hold you accountable to actually doing the work. That's exactly what I do in my leadership coaching program. If you're ready to stop playing small and start showing up as the confident leader your career demands, then book a slot in the first link in the description for a strategy session. Until then, I hope you have a great day. I'm Terry McDougall, your leadership success secret weapon.